intro or anything like that.
So the show.
That's what it is.
No intro to the show.
So, like I said, I talked to Jess and Jeff earlier, and I wanted to just sit down and just like freestyle some like thoughts and ideas behind everything we do every day, and like what we encounter, what we see, training day in and day out, and just talk about life. So we're just gonna open it up, and you coach here at Central, and you work with competitive athletes, and what do you see? What have you these last couple months been like?
I mean, the last couple months have been kind of crazy with the Open and with everybody, taking that on and training for that specifically, and putting it all out there, at least once a week. But I think, in a more generalized sense, I see a real dedication and a real commitment to excellence is what I think I see like most on a regular basis. And I think that comes, from within each individual person, but also from the group. I think that there's a strong group commitment to the process of what we're doing, and to the ultimate goal, which is, I think you said it last week, just to make yourself a better person, to become better. Period.
Yeah, and I mean, like thinking about that, like Karen, for example. I was talking to her. I talked to you about her last night, and I told her today that she's a great example of that. Someone who is a good athlete, who has talent, who just came in the gym and just worked day in, day out. And I mean, she's been to regionals twice, right? Three times. She's an individual 2 years, team for one.
Yeah.
And just missed qualifying as going to the games 2 years ago as an individual. And I watched her last year and watching her this year in the gym, and she's like a whole different person.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see like that kind of progression go on and happen. And it's like she's better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of phenomenal to see.
Yeah. I think that there's a certain level of to be a games athlete, you have to be a great CrossFitter, you have to be a great athlete, you have to be strong, you have to be fit, all these components that come into being a great CrossFitter. But I also think that you have to, your commitment and your switch, so to speak, has to be flipped. And I think that there's a lot of CrossFitters that some years they have all the strength and skill and fitness, but they haven't flipped the switch, and they don't have that mental just I'm gonna win attitude. And then there's a lot of other people out there, I think probably more so than the other side, that have the I'm gonna win everything. They flip the switch, but they just fall short in other aspects, either strength or fitness or skill or whatever it is. And so I think that those athletes that do well at regionals, and those athletes that make it to the games ultimately, they have both. They have that high level of CrossFitness, and then they also have that drive, that inner voice that just says win, and they flip that switch. So I think Karen, what we're starting to see is those two things come together. Her experience and her fitness, and now her desire. Yeah, all that's coming together.
I think experience is a big component of it too, because you have to understand. There's a lot of things about CrossFit that don't show up on the whiteboard, and that you just have to learn. You have to just go through and struggle. And I think struggling like that and having those disappointments is part of what makes you produce or progress as an athlete.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can't speed up or slow down. It just kind of happens.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that there's, experience isn't the number of years necessarily. I know a lot of people that get a lot of experience very quickly, 1 year or less. And I think that has to do with an athlete's commitment to the process of not only commitment to the process, but understanding of what it takes to become a great athlete. And I think that takes a mature athlete, that takes an egoless athlete, I think that requires so many things. And we have a lot of examples of that here at this gym, Karen being one of them. But yeah, there's a whole nother level. There's multiple levels that don't show up on the whiteboard, and that you can only access or only learn about by going through them. You don't even know they're there until you go through them, and then you realize that they're there. Yeah.
So you've stepped like full time into coaching this year. The group, has that changed your perspective? Probably has, but how has it changed your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it more so than anything else, it's given me a really good insight into how athletes are and how groups interact and how training partners interact, because when I was a competitor, when I was competing and training to be an athlete, I was very much inside of myself a lot of times, and CrossFit, even though it's a team sport, it's also very much an individual sport, even on the team side of things. The level of communication and teamwork involved is not, anywhere close to the same level as like football or basketball or soccer or any other field sport like that. But I don't think that means that also shouldn't happen within a training environment on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. I think that's even more important a lot of times in this training environment, because this training environment is so relentless, and it's so intense, and it's so unforgiving in a lot of ways. So I think it's opened up my mind to that, in being able to step back and watch people work with each other, watch people support each other, or to not watch those things happen, and try to figure out why, and try to motivate people to step into those roles in the right times, in the right places. I think that's kind of what has given me more than anything else. Obviously it's allowed me to focus on programming and play with programming and how that affects different athletes and how it affects a large group. But I think the group dynamic is really where I'm starting to see things happen.
Yeah. So on the topic of group dynamic, because I know that the energy in the room plays a role in the workout, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. For me, it's different, because I'm coming from a sport where we would train and work out, and then we would go do our sport. And the training and the working out is in the same place as a sport in CrossFit. There's no football, you train and you go out in the field and you do your thing.
Yeah.
But coming into the gym day in and day out, it can be a grind. And I'm not even going to regionals or competing on that level, and I feel it. So what do you how do you approach that from a coaching standpoint, with athletes that you see get into a mock code?
I think if you're a coach and you're training, let's say you're training athletes that are serious about the sport and that want to work out and train 4 days or 5 days a week, I think that there's an understanding, once again, kind of like that experience piece of things, where you have to understand that not every day is going to be fun, and not every day is going to be smiles and laughs and slaps on the ass. I think that there's understanding that some days are just going to be boring, and some days are just going to be inglorious, and some days are just going to be a grind. And being able to, number one, if you're prepared for that, before you start your training, that's going to be one thing. To be able to lean on your teammates for support is another aspect of it, which I think is very important for teammates and training partners, to be able to voice themselves to their teammates and let them know, hey, I'm going to need to pick me up today. I need you today, whatever it is. If you need something, let me know. But then I think, as a coach also, it's important to try to spice it up and to try to keep things different, and And some days you're gonna have to turn up the music full blast to get people going. Some days, the music might not even be on, and people are gonna be just bouncing off the walls with crazy energy because they're just excited to be there. And I think that programming plays a piece of that. If you're programming hard shit all the time, just brutal grinders, then the attitude of the athletes is going to reflect that. I very much believe that the attitude of athletes as they move and navigate training will reflect a lot of the programming. If it's always heavy, the mood might be heavy. If it's always light, then people might be light. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that there's those kind of things that play into it.
So, last question to close it out. When we talk about goals and targets for the year, like the obvious ones are to go to the games and to perform well and to make it to the highest level of the competition. But like my real
spiderweb.
My question is like, what is your hope for your athletes? What do you hope they come away with at the end of this season?
I mean, at the end of this season, obviously, like you said, you want to go to the CrossFit Games. One of my biggest driving factors right now as a coach, and the thing that gets me the most excited is, so we went to the games in 12, and I got to experience that. And that was, there's been a couple in my life, but I think that has to be the top, if not one of the top 3 sporting moments in my entire life. And I want my athletes to experience that. I want my athletes to have that exact same experience of what it feels like to be at that very, very high level, that top level of team competition within CrossFit. And outside of that, I want everyone, whether they're competitors or not, to walk away saying, we accomplished something this year. Like even if we didn't get as high as like if we go to the games and we don't make it to the final day, then we did something great and amazing, and it was another building block for the coming year, and for the 2 years after that, and for the 3 years after that. I think that's the ultimate goal, is to accomplish something. It's not a 1 year. We're not in it for 1 year. We're not in it for 2 years. We're in it for 5, 10, 15 years. And I think that everything that we do has to be built around that long-term goal. So, best case scenario is we get something out of this year. We learn stuff. We accomplish things, and it all, is geared towards the coming year and the year after that.
Yeah. Well, we touched on it, so I want to expand upon it about like we're not in it for this 1 year thing.
Yeah.
I see that a lot, like on Twitter, on Facebook, as people like go like all in for 2014.
Yeah.
Balls to the wall, like games are bust, regionals are bust, and they like put so much energy and tension. They bomb the first open workout, and they're like devastated, and they keep going, and then like by the end of the process, like they end up like hating it, and they're like, they go into the tank and disappear, and then next year they show up and do it again. It's like, oh, I'm on to 2015. Like, so, I mean, I think it's probably newness of sport, but like understanding that it's a slow, gradual grind before you hit that huge upkick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I talked about it. If you had anything to add.
No, I think you're spot on. I think it's partly the newness of the sport, and partly I think there's still some remnants of the old school. Anybody can show up to the CrossFit Games and just do it, and you get to participate and be in it just because you were, top of your box. And I think that those days are gone. I think everybody knows that. So I think it's the newness of the sport starting to wear off. I also feel like enough people are not taking the approach of, let's say, an Olympian, where there are people that have practiced their entire lives to get to this one pinnacle point, time and place, and I think people are trying to get to the status of NFL quarterbacks or Olympic weightlifters or Olympic athletes, having only done something for 1 year or 2 years. And I think that there's more of a need to take that long-term approach where Olympians train for 4 years for their competition. So there's a 4-year buildup of development, strength, conditioning, skill work, everything that goes into their one big competition, with mini competitions or smaller competitions along the way. So I think that would be a real good almost framework or model for current CrossFitters that are looking to compete at a high level is, well, stop taking the 1-year approach of the open is everything, regionals is everything, and let's take it back and let's look at it from a 4 or 5 year standpoint where you can develop over the course of 4 or 5 years, and then you can start to criticize yourself or react harshly when you fail or when you don't perform at your absolute peak. But I think expecting to make it to the games within 1 or 2 years of training, unless you're an absolute phenom, is just unrealistic. In a word, it's just unrealistic. So, not to say don't set goals and don't chase dreams, but absolutely understand once again that there's a process. There has to be a sense of reality around what has to happen in order to be able to make it to that level.
That's all I got. Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah. What you got? What you got? I got you.